The Triangle Center for Spiritual Living on this absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous morning. Is there anyone that's here for the very first time? Hi, welcome everyone. That's great. My name, for those of you who do not know me, is Reverend Dusty Ripplemeyer. I am the spiritual director of this amazing community. And we are a community that follows the teachings of Ernest Holmes. We believe that there is just one God, and that God is benevolent and loving, and that it represents and is the power of creation, and that through our connection and our oneness with God, we too have the power to create, and therefore we can create the lives that we really wish to live, and that we do this in co-creation with Spirit. And we come together to celebrate life. We meet on Wednesdays for destination transformation, and on Sundays for our celebration services, and Mondays and Tuesdays and Thursdays and Fridays and Saturdays for all the kinds of things, from classes to workshops to just opportunities to be in fellowship with each other. So just thank you so very much for being here. And also, welcome and thank you to those of you who have turned into the streaming and through the power of technology have invited us into your living rooms today. I'm so very grateful for that. Thank you for being here. And thank you to each and every person that is here today for the support that we all are to each other on this spiritual path.
So I invite you to turn within as I read the readings for today and speak a word of blessing on our service. The first reading is from the Bible in Romans 12:2. And be ye not conformed to this world, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what it is that is good and acceptable and the perfect will of God. And the second reading is by Mark Nepo in his wonderful book called The 7,000 Ways to Listen. It is called But How? It is said that souls intent on living will reach deep into their wound and bring out the fire living there, which, out in the open, turns to light. It is said that those intent on making things better will reach deep into their minds and bring out the fire there, which, out in the open, turns to truth.
So good morning to those of you who may have just arrived. And if you did, then you didn't get to hear Dr. Mike tell us that the theme for the month of October is You Asked for It, Life's Answers to the Big Questions. Now my talk title today is Where Did My Fire Go? And the underlying statement from Ernest Holmes' What We Believe statements is we believe in the direct revelation of truth through the intuitive and spiritual nature of the individual. Now, our marketing for the month of October posited that life can be funny sometimes. That sometimes those things that we think should be easy become hard and confusing. That despite our plans and our best organization, we get busy and we experience overwhelm. That in our lives as human beings, we experience things. Things happen that are painful. Dis-ease, illness, loss, and death are a part of the human condition. They are a part of our lives. They are a part of our stories. We feel sadness, dis-ease, fear, doubt, worry, confusion. These are all human emotions, all normal human emotions, all emotions that we all feel from time to time. Now, my guess is that each of us has, at some point in time or another, asked ourselves, is this all that there is to life? How can I stop being a victim, battered about by the experiences of my life, and really live? How and when can I stop merely surviving and begin to really thrive? Now, forging our path through the experiences of the ups and downs, the ins and outs, the mazes that our life sometimes go through can be a really good idea. But we often need to get some advice. We often need to get some guidance about the direction that we're going. We often need to get some clarity about the answers to our problems that can't be found at the level of our problem. Now, the question that we are diving into this morning is, where did my fire go? And this might be a question that we might ask ourselves when it's hard to get up in the morning, or when we feel like we're just going through the motions. Now, my answer to this question of where did my fire go is nowhere. It is right where it has always been. But perhaps it's just obscured by the dirt and the grime of the journey, hidden behind the fog of fear, doubt, and worry, or buried under layers and layers of old beliefs and patterns that no longer serve us. To find out what is going on with us individually and collectively, and to bring our fire out into the open, I feel we need to look at this idea of fire itself. Now, one of the definitions of fire is to inflame with passion, to be excited, filled with ardor, to be inspired. Now, you may be asking yourself, what does it take to live that kind of life? What do I need to do to live that kind of life? Who do I need to be to live that kind of life? When do I get to live that kind of life? Where has my fire gone? And as I sat with these questions over this last week, I leaned into my intuitive spiritual nature, my inner wisdom, and I received an expanded definition of this word fire, based on the letters F-I-R-E. Now, during the month of September, well, first let me just tell you, F is for flame and freedom. And during the month of September, during our Wednesday evening Destination Transformation series, we were looking at the work of Danielle Laporte in her book, Firestarter, A New Beginning. Now, in the book, she talks about mojo. Now, most of us have probably heard that word mojo, right? The underlying meaning behind the word mojo is a power that may seem magical and that has the ability to allow the person with mojo to be effective and successful. Now, for me, this sounds a lot like the power and presence of God within, the spark of the divine within the center of our being, the inner Christ consciousness, our innate inner wisdom, our intuition, or any other name that you want to use to call the one life, the one power, the one presence, the one God, the one heart that is at the center of all of life. It is our unique and individualized expression of God. The bottom line is that this fire, and I'm going to call it this power, this presence, I'm going to call the flame. The flame. This flame is within us. It has always been within us. And like Sandy said, Just because we cannot see it, it doesn't mean that it's not there. It is there. Just because we cannot feel it at every single moment of our lives doesn't mean that it is not there. It is there. It is always there. We cannot be separated from it. Danielle Laporte calls it our soul fire, and she says that it is ancient and that is integral to all of us. Now, the bottom line is that, like an acorn, we have within us everything we could ever need to be our highest and best, to live fully, to be successful and effective in all arenas of our lives. Our highest and best is seeking to be expressed through and as us. It is that which we came here to be, to say, or to do, and it is something that no one else can say or be or do. It is a place that only we can hold. Now, nothing outside of ourselves can define us. Nothing outside of ourselves can limit us. There is nothing outside of us that has any more power than the power and presence that is within us. And being in alignment with that space, with that wisdom, with that clarity, with that awareness, with that love, with that joy, with that passion, allows for us to be our real self. And the self that I'm talking about is the self with a capital S, the self that we were created to be. Now, we were created in the image and likeness of God, imbued with the allness of God. We are one with God. The Father and I are one. That can never be changed. It can never be broken. And through that connection, through that flame that is within us, anything is possible. Anything is possible. Now, the second F that came up for me is freedom. When we arrived on the planet, we were given free will. We have the power to choose and to choose again. One of the basic underlying tenets of the teaching of Abraham is the basis of life is absolute freedom. You were born with an innate knowledge that you do create your own reality. You were born knowing that you are the creator of your own reality, and although that desire pulsed within you in a powerful way, when you began to integrate into your society, you began to accept much the same picture that others held of the way your life story should unfold. But still, within you today lives the knowledge that you are the creator of your own experience, that absolute freedom exists as the basis of your experience. Now, this is a little bit like the idea, more than a little bit, it's a lot like the idea of domestication that Miguel Ruiz talks about in his book, The Four Agreements. Now, over time, we have told ourselves things about ourselves. And over time, we have listened to and begun to believe what others have said about ourselves. And we have fallen under the spell of the ideas of a particular race or a particular culture or a particular religion or a particular lifestyle. We have given away our power. We have given away our freedom. We have simply accepted certain beliefs that race consciousness believes about lack and limitation. We have accepted the rules of the game and then have followed them blindly. Now, the only way to be really free is to realize that nothing truly hinders us, that nothing truly limits us except our own minds. Except our own minds. We believe here at the center that we live and create the experiences of our lives from the inside out. That we have a power within us that allows us to create the life that we want to live. When we do not remember that the basis of our life is freedom, when we do not consciously choose to create from a space of freedom, from a space of limitless possibility, from a space of unconditional love, or from a space of boundless joy, we continue to create limitation, lack, poverty, dis-ease, loneliness, and war. Now, when we recognize that freedom is the truth of who we are at the very center of our being, then we can begin to realize that anything that is unlike freedom is a worn-out belief. And when we begin to realize that that thing that's not exactly like freedom is a worn-out belief, then, and only then, do we have the possibility to choose again. Now, when we create from the context of freedom, when that is the context that we create from, this idea of limitless possibility and absolute freedom as being who we are at our very core, nothing can stop us. There is the possibilities are endless. The I is for intuition and imagination. Deepak Chopra says, to make the right choices in life, you have to get in touch with your soul. To do this, you need to experience solitude, because in the silence you hear the truth and know the solutions. Now, our inner voice is the part of us that knows what to do at all times, in all situations. It is the voice of the divine within us. Now, when we can stop resisting what's happening, and when we can get quiet enough, and when we allow ourselves to listen for and to that voice, it can and will inform us of all that we need to be, to do, or to say. It is available to us at all times, simply by getting quiet and by asking and then by listening. Whenever we check in with this voice, we can be assured that we will get a reliable answer. And you'll know the difference. You will know it. Now, there is a power and presence within us that knows that the conditions and situations of our lives are not at cause, that they are simply a reflection of what we believe about ourselves and our lives, about what we feel, and about what we think about. Merely a reflection of that. There is that within us that knows that we live from the inside out. There is a wisdom within each and every single one of us that knows how to rise above the limitations of our lives, and that not only is this power greater than the limitations, but it is powerful enough to lift us up and out and over and above our limitations. We are not defined by them. Now, the invitation today is to recognize that that wisdom is an aspect of the flame that is within us. The invitation today is to begin to cultivate the art of listening to your intuition, to the voice of the divine within, to learn to get quiet and to listen for and to that voice. Practice until that voice is the only one you hear and not the collective voice of the world. Trust your intuition. And if you have to start with being willing to trust your intuition, then start there. Because it's a perfect place to start. Wherever you are is the perfect place to start. Now, the voice knows the answers to all of life's big questions, and it's more than ready, willing, and able to give those answers to you. And that voice will never let you down. Neville Goddard, in his book, Prayer, The Art of Believing, says, imagination is the beginning of creation. You imagine what you desire, and then you believe it to be true. Every dream could be realized by those self-disciplined enough to believe it. So your own wonderful imagination is the actual creative power of God within you. Your imagination is the power to shift out of whatever circumstances you might find yourself within. You can experience your heart's desire through your imagination. Nothing is impossible to your imagination because the allness of possibilities lives within it. If you can imagine something, then you can achieve it. In fact, it's the only way that you can, because it's created first in our mind and then in form. So if you are unable to imagine it, then it will be hard to create it. But if you can imagine it, you can create it. So what turns you on? What would fill you up? What lights your fire? What twirls your skirt? What would be... Like that one? It's one of my favorites. Now, what would be revolutionary? What would take you out of the ordinary into extraordinary? What has the capacity to not only have you merely survive, but to actually thrive? Imagination. Dare to dream. Dare to dream of your ideal life. Dream that dream, and then be prepared and ready and willing to do the work, to get into action, to do whatever is required of you to fully step into that life. Goethe says, whatever you can do or dream, you can begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Now the R is for recognition and responsibility. To find the fire, both individually and collectively, we need to recognize that God is all that there is. That the power and presence of God is back of everything, the seen and the unseen. That each and every manifestation, each and everything in the world of form was created by God out of God's substance. And that there is no place, I mean no place, where God is not. God is either everywhere or nowhere. Now I choose to believe that it's everywhere. So there is no place where God is not. And through this connection, through this spark of the divine that is within us, this connection that can never be broken, all of God's manifestations, all life is one unbreakable whole. One unbreakable whole. God holds it all in wholeness, in oneness. To find the fire both individually and collectively, we have to imagine the already existing wholeness within. The already existing wholeness within ourselves, the already existing wholeness within the entire consciousness of the planet. It would behoove us to stand firmly grounded in our wholeness, in the perfection of our spiritual beingness. The invitation is to offer our service to the vision of a world that works for everyone from a place in which we recognize that it is our responsibility to see the wholeness that we know exists in every single situation, no matter what the circumstances say. That's our responsibility, to bring our awareness of the wholeness that actually exists, even though, as Sandy said, we might not see it in that moment. It is there. It exists. Now, the truth is that when you can bring your attention to the fire, the flame, the spark of the divine within, that struggle ceases. And that our experience of life becomes easier. Through this moment of expanded awareness, our perception is changed. The context from which we create our experiences shifts. When our perspective changes, then our external experiences also change. In this way, our connection to God, this unbreakable, eternal connection to God, has the power to transform the seemingly unchangeable concrete world, the seemingly unchangeable material events of our lives. Now, in order for this process to play itself out in our lives, in order for our lives to become easier, we must shift our attention to God. We must shift our attention to God. That aspect of ourselves that knows what it knows, that aspect of ourselves that represents our higher awareness, that aspect of ourselves that knows that anything is possible and that whatever we can imagine, we can manifest. The person who has the deepest concept and awareness of God will be the one who will do the most, consciously do the most with their power, their creative power of their thought. It is our responsibility to stand firmly grounded in this truth, to bring that forward to life. Now, the E is for enthusiasm and expression. Eckhart Tolle says, whenever there is enthusiasm, there is a creative empowerment that goes far beyond what a mere person is capable of. Enthusiasm knows where it's going. I love that. Enthusiasm knows where it's going. Now, he suggests that enthusiasm is the highest form of awakened doing. The highest form of awakened doing. Enthusiasm is not something that just happens, it's something that we bring to the table. Now, with enthusiasm, there is a deep enjoyment in anything and everything that we are doing. And with enthusiasm as the underlying context that we are creating from, we will draw unto ourselves more and more good, more and more peace, more and more joy, more and more abundance, more and more creativity, more and more love. Enthusiasm's got it going on. It knows where it's going. Ernest Holmes says, life has set the stamp of individuality on you. You are different from any other person that has ever lived. Do you hear that? You are different from any other person that has ever lived. You are an individualized center in the consciousness of God. You are an individualized activity in the action of God. Now, what this means is that there is a perfect form of self-expression for each and every one of us. Something that we are to do or to be that no one else can do or be. A place that only we can fill. That's our place. No one else can fill that in quite the same way that we can. Within each of us, there is something that is seeking to be expressed through and as us. It is the thing that we were created to do. Now, it was inscribed upon our hearts when we arrived on the planet. It is the dream that we have always dreamt, the life that we can imagine when we are standing in the allness of possibility, and more important, it is spirit knowing what is possible for our lives. Now, the bottom line is that in order to co-create a world that works for everyone, we each of us, has to powerfully step into the recognition that God is all that there is, and that each of us is an ambassador of God on the planet. That we were created by God in its image and likeness, and that there is a spark or a flame of the divine within each of us. That it is our responsibility to be the highest and best expression of it that we possibly can in any given moment. It is in order for each of us to co-create a life that works for everyone, we have to listen to and for our intuition, the voice of the divine within, and we have to be willing to act upon the inspiration that we get. To this end, we are invited to dream, to use the power of imagination to create a mental equivalent that we love, that we are passionate about, and to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that that mental equivalent will then bring that forward into manifestation, into our lives in a very powerful way. I believe that whenever we are able to discover the fire within, to bring it forward with enthusiasm from a space of true freedom, that life, we will find that life just works. That hard and confusing cease to exist, and that overwhelm falls to the wayside. And we love the life that we are living. And so it is. Amen. Amen. I invite you to turn within. And please join me in taking a moment to remember the presence of God that is within each of us and surrounding each of us. And what I know in this moment is that it is eternal, that it is everywhere at all times, that it is the very essence of peace and joy, creativity, abundance, unconditional love. And what I know is that it is an energy that has absolutely no boundaries and points of center everywhere, and that I am one of those points. I was created by it in its image and likeness, and am therefore all that it is. And just as I know that this is true for me, I know that it is absolutely so for each and every person here today. That each of us is a unique and divine expression of God and ambassador on the planet of the thing, and yet not the thing, for the thing is so much grander. And it is from this place of unity, of oneness, that I speak these words about and for each of us today. Truly knowing that there is that within us that knows that we live our lives from the inside out, that knows allness of possibility, that knows how to create a life that we are passionate about. And what I know about this place, this space within us, is that we are connected to it in ways that can never be broken. And that as we get quiet, we can ask the questions and get the answers. It can inform us of what to do and where to go. And what I affirm for each of us today is that because we are here, we have a powerful yes to allowing that thing that is within us to be expressed, that thing that only we can bring to the planet, to be shared with everyone. That because we are here, we have a powerful yes to serving God, to serving each other, to being a force for good. And what I know about that is that we can never know what one moment can be to another, and how that, like a stone in a pond, ripples out, so that as we are transformed, as we transform our lives, the entire planet transforms. And together we have co-created a world that works for everyone, and I'm so happy about that. So grateful for the way it works. So grateful for the power of prayer, knowing that these words are loosed into that law that only ever says yes, that they are clothed in form even as they are spoken. And so I speak them with love and with gratitude, and loose that into the law, letting God be God. And I invite each of us to anchor this prayer for ourselves and for each other simply by saying, "And so it is. Amen." Amen. Thank you, everyone.